Meet Maya. Maya has been waiting all week for this. She has nothing urgent to do. No one needs anything from her. She can finally sit down. But 10 minutes later, she's doing laundry. Not because the laundry needs doing, but because sitting there has started to feel uncomfortable. She thinks, I should be doing something. And then comes the guilt. Meet Alex. Alex finally gets home after a long day and collapses onto the couch. This should feel good. But instead, his mind gets louder. He starts replaying a conversation from earlier, thinking about tomorrow. He notices a tightness in his chest that he hadn't noticed all day. He picks up his phone as he asks, why do I feel more anxious now that I've stopped? Meet Mary. Mary isn't particularly anxious or guilty. She just can't seem to stop doing. She sits down and remembers something she needs to check. She checks it, then makes a list for tomorrow, then looks something up, then reorganizes something that did not need reorganizing. And every time she does something, she feels just a little bit better for a moment. And then that urge comes back to do something. And finally meet Mark. Mark has something he says he wants all the time, a completely free day. No work, no obligations, nothing he has to do. And then that day arrives and Mark has absolutely no idea what he wants to do with it. He can tell you everything he should do, but ask him what he actually wants, and that's harder. We have 4 different people and 4 moments of finally slowing down, and 4 very different versions of why does stopping make me feel worse? So in this video, I want to look at these 4 common reasons slowing down can feel so uncomfortable, and then explore what that discomfort might actually be telling us. You might recognize yourself in every one of them. One pattern may show up more often for you, but at different times and in different circumstances. You might experience guilt, anxiety, restlessness, an urge to do something, or even a strange sense of emptiness when life finally goes quiet. So let's go back to Maya. When stopping threatens who you think you should be. The interesting thing about Maya isn't that she got up and did the laundry. It's what happened before she got up. She sat down, and almost immediately she had the feeling I should do something. It came into her head, or maybe she experienced it more like an urge than an actual thought. But the statement isn't about the laundry. It's about Maya. Maybe Maya spent years being the reliable one, the productive one, the person who gets things done. Maybe being useful has been rewarded in her family, in work, in relationships. Maybe she's learned to associate productivity with being responsible, disciplined, successful, or even being a good person. So stopping can produce guilt because stopping conflicts with the identity we've associated ourselves with. People like me don't sit around doing nothing. And sometimes there's something even deeper underneath it. If a significant part of my self-worth comes from what I accomplish, provide, fix, or do for other people, who am I when I'm not doing any of those things? That's why telling Maya to just relax probably isn't very helpful. In fact, that statement may provoke anxiety in her because she probably doesn't have a relaxation problem. She may be bumping into something about identity and worth. And we're going to come back to that because it raises a much bigger question about why some of us never quite feel good enough regardless of how much we do. Now let's go back to Alex, when stopping makes things more noticeable. Alex believes relaxing makes me anxious. And for many people, that experience is very real. But I want to make an important distinction here. Slowing down may not have created the discomfort. It probably simply made it easier to notice. Let's think about Alex's day. His attention has been occupied with meetings, conversations, decisions, deadlines, emails. Then all of that stopped. The external demands became quieter, and suddenly there's more space to notice what's happening inside. Maybe it's thoughts that have been sitting in the background throughout the day. Maybe he notices the tension in his chest or how exhausted he actually is. Maybe he becomes more aware of feeling sad, lonely, angry, worried about something. Or maybe something happened during the day that he simply hasn't had the space to process yet. So Alex experiences this as I stopped and now I feel worse. That's real, but it doesn't necessarily mean that stopping caused what he's feeling. It may simply mean that being less externally occupied has changed what's available to his attention. And this is where I think we need to be really careful with the popular idea that keeping busy is just a coping mechanism to avoid our feelings. Sometimes activity can function that way. but not always, because activity can also genuinely support us. Work, exercise, social connection, hobbies, even everyday routines can help us to regulate our emotions. So keeping busy isn't as clear-cut as good or bad. A more useful question might be, what is this behavior doing for me right now? And if you watched my previous video on emotion regulation, resilience, and the fix-it loop, you'll recognize that question. In that video, we looked at how the same behavior can have very different functions, depending on what that behavior is doing for us at that particular time. But here, I want to turn that idea around. The same experience, slowing down, can be uncomfortable for very different reasons. We're going to come back to that later in the video. We're not going to leave poor Alex sitting alone on the couch feeling bad. But first, there's another reason slowing down can feel so difficult. Let's go back to Mary. Mary stops. She feels a little restless. Nothing terrible, but then she has the thought, I'll just check one thing. She checks it, and there's a tiny shift of relief. Then another urge comes, followed by another action and another little bit of relief. If you've watched the Fix It Loop video, this should begin to look familiar. Experience leads to urgency, leads to do something, leads to relief. And that relief is important to understand because behavior that reliably changes how we feel can become increasingly likely to happen again. So Mary may not consciously think, I'm uncomfortable, therefore I will regulate this by becoming productive. She just gets up, checks, plans, she does something. Doing has become the familiar response to discomfort. And that's why slowing down can feel surprisingly difficult even when there's no major emotional crisis underneath it. Sometimes there's simply a well-practiced pathway back into doing. This is how relaxation can easily turn into another discipline and then backfire. Does this sound familiar? I need to meditate for 20 minutes. I need to learn how to rest properly. I need a better evening routine. Suddenly, we're doing relaxation. We've turned stopping into another thing to get right, which may put us straight back into the fix-it loop. And just like Alex, we're not leaving Mary stranded here. We'll come back to what she can do differently, but first, let's go back to Matt. I think his experience gets talked about the least of all four. Remember, Matt finally has nothing to do. And instead of feeling liberated because he's finally getting what he asked for, he feels a little lost. For years, his life might have been organized around questions like, what needs doing? Who needs me? What should I accomplish next? What problem needs solving? Those questions provide structure. But when you remove them, another question appears. What do I actually want? And sometimes we just don't know, because we may have very little practice asking ourselves that. Our roles in life can become incredibly powerful organizers for us. We can be a parent, a partner, a caregiver, achiever, helper, the responsible one. And if most of my decisions have been organized around fulfilling those roles or meeting life's demands, slowing down can expose a distance between the life I'm managing and the life I actually want to participate in. That's no longer a simple question about relaxation. That's a question about identity, values, purpose, and meaning. And I think that's one reason just take some time for yourself can be such unsatisfying advice, because Matt finally has time for himself. He's just not sure who that self is anymore. And that can be uncomfortable because sometimes slowing down doesn't just give us a break from our lives. It gives us a chance to notice and assess how we're living them. And we may not know immediately what to do with what we discover. So where does that leave our four characters? If slowing down brings up guilt, uncomfortable feelings, the urge to start doing again, or questions about who we are and what we actually want, what do we do with that? That's going to lead us to today's healing pivot. So which one are you? Actually, that's the wrong question. Because remember, Maya, Alex, Mary, and Mark aren't personality types. You could be Maya on Monday, Alex on Wednesday, Mary at 11 o'clock at night, and then Mark when you finally take a week off. So a more useful question is, what's happening for me this time? And we don't have to have the answer immediately. Often creating a little space between what we're experiencing and what we automatically do next is enough of a shift to give us more choice. It slows the process down enough to ask, what's happening here? What am I making this mean? And given what's happening, how do I want to respond? And what's realistically available to me right now? That small shift is what I call the healing pivot. And I use 3 simple steps: notice, name, choose. So first we notice, what am I actually experiencing right now? Before I explain it, judge it, or try to change it, what am I noticing? Maybe it's a thought, a feeling, a physical sensation, an urge to get up and do something. The point isn't to analyze it yet. Just notice what's actually happening. Then we name it. And by name, I don't mean just naming the emotion. I'm asking, what am I making this mean? This is where we start to notice the interpretation we're attaching to the experience. Maya might notice guilt when she stops, and she makes that mean, I shouldn't be resting, I'm lazy. Alex might notice anxiety and conclude, relaxing makes me anxious. Maybe slowing down isn't good for me. Mary might experience restlessness and interpret it as, I need to do something. And Mark may not know what he wants to do with his free time. And that might mean to him, I should know what I want. What's wrong with me that I don't? The important thing here is not that we immediately decide whether these interpretations are right and wrong. We're simply recognizing that we give meaning to an experience, and that meaning can influence what we do next. And maybe in noticing that, there might be a more helpful meaning that we could replace the current meaning with. And once we can see that interpretation, rather than simply reacting from it, we have a little more room for the third step, choose. Given what I'm actually experiencing and the meaning I'm attaching to it, how do I want to respond? What's realistically available to me right now? Because this isn't about coming up with the perfect response. That would just give us another thing to get right. Maya might choose to continue resting even though there's some guilt present. Alex might stay with what he's noticing for a while or realize that there's actually something he does need to address. Mary might notice the urge to check, plan, organize something, and decide that this time she doesn't need to immediately act on it. And Mark doesn't have to figure out what he wants for the rest of his life. Maybe he just asks, what would I like to do with the next hour? Different experiences, different interpretations, and different choices. The goal of a healing pivot isn't to make sure you always make the right choice. It's to create enough space between what happens and what you automatically do next that you have more choice. I want to come back to one of our 4 people in the next video, Maya, because underneath her character, the I should be doing something, there can sometimes be a much deeper belief hiding. The I should be productive or useful, achieving, improving myself, doing better than this can raise a bigger question. If I'm not doing all of these things, am I still good enough? One of the most exhausting places to live is in a life where good enough is always somewhere you haven't reached yet. And that's where we're going next. But before you go, I'd love to know what tends to show up for you when you finally slow down. Is it guilt, anxiety, the urge to start doing again, or maybe the now what feeling that Mark experienced? Let me know in the comments. And if these are the kinds of conversations you want to keep having, subscribe to Healing Pivots so you don't miss the next one. I'm Dr. Kilty Oberlin. Thank you for being here.